Hello, everyone. I know you missed me yesterday, and I miss you guys too. But guess what? We had a replay from Vigo Awards International 2016 yesterday, and a lot of people said it was perfect. So I want to let you guys know that Vigo is coming up October 4th. 2020, and it's going to be all virtual. I want to say a big thank you to everyone that had already nominated their heroes, and we're going to be celebrating the COVID-19 heroes this year all around the world. So I'm looking forward to that. On the 29th of August, we're going to be having a conference where I am moderating with very beautiful young women speaking to that conference called the Unveiled Women's Conference. So please make sure you're registered at unveiledwomens.eventbrite to be able to attend that conference. Today is Motivation Monday with our Dr. Marlyn Morris. I need some motivation today. So I really, really am looking forward to this show, at least to calm my spirit down. I really need to be motivated today. So let me bring her up and we will be able to say hello to Dr. Morris. Hello, Dr. Morris.
Hello, my queen. Good
How
afternoon to you, and good afternoon to all our viewers all over the world. And wherever you are right now, I hope you're having an amazing day or night, whatever it might be, in your neck of the woods, evening, morning, or afternoon. Okay? So, thank you for joining us today as we continue our program in raising resilient families for the 21st century, looking particularly at the partnership approach and how we do that. As we said before, there is no manual for raising children, as it were, right? And we cannot do it alone. We need other people because we are within a society where we are, in communities, in homes, in schools, in churches, with everyone. And you know the old saying that it takes a village to raise a child. But for me, I believe that we must understand the members in that village and who we are going to partner with to raise that child resiliently. Okay. Last week, you remember we touched on the education sector, the teachers in particular, in this partnership approach between teachers and parents. And we're going to go back to this next week as well to look at the real strategies of that approach and what we need to do in terms of what parents need to do and what teachers and schools and principals and everyone who is involved in the education sector for children and youth, and as early as the age of 5, when they go to the preschool, we have to begin to raise them. The foundational elements are very important for raising resilient children. It's not now a matter of only the parents. Okay, so this is what we want to push, that we need to know we all have a responsibility to raise resilient children for peace and harmony in this world. And especially now when we see all kinds of wars and rumors of wars and parents distracting and, teachers having stress. Everyone is facing stress, especially now with COVID. We see that very clearly right now. Okay. So today I want to continue what we started last week. And this time I am going to look at teaching social and emotional learning skills to children and youth, and viewing it from a partnership approach. And when we talk about social skills, there are many. How to be confident, how to have empathy, how to have compassion, right? That's part of the whole social and emotional learning. How to avoid bullyism in school. Okay. You remember last week we talked about respecting teachers, respecting other students as well. And we made a point last week about a child coming home and said, teacher didn't treat me right today. And immediately the mother said, I'm going down there now to see that teacher, right? And reacting rather than responding to the child. Okay, so we need to learn these things if we want peace to be part of our living and our existence in sustainable living and livelihood, by the way. How do we raise children and the generation and leave a legacy of value, one which value everyone because of human dignity and self-worth? And I did say before, human dignity is an inalienable right of every human being. Okay? So when we start of that, can we go wrong? No, I don't think so. So today we're going to look at these skills that we must encourage at home and in school, and must be ensured by parents and teachers in partnership, okay, in that particular partnership. So what are these skills then, you may ask? Okay, and these are skills that some of us knew long ago when we were raised with our own parents, as baby boomers we are, many of us, right? And we know that we had to respect our parents and so on and so forth. But then there's a new spin on it in this 21st century, because we were raised at a time when we didn't have all this technology either, and all this access, the science and technological advancement that make the world go around faster, and where we have access right across the world in seconds as we look at our smartphones. Okay? So children sometimes lack the training in these social and emotional skills that will help them to cope with what is happening in society. And I dare say, what is showing now with COVID is that children are suffering grief, pain, loss. They are suffering like parents are suffering. And we have heard from youth, those in secondary schools that we interview, and they're saying it's not a time for them. They don't like it at all. Neither are they, neither because they are separated from their peers, but because it is very hard time, right? And that raised the question of how can we ensure that we are conscious enough of what our children are going through in the home environment, as well as the school environment and the wider community, even in their churches, okay? So today I'm going to focus this discourse on the 10 C's for raising resilient children. The 10 C's. And what are these, you may ask? I beseech you to listen carefully, okay? And some people have identified some of these C's, but I have identified 10 of them. And the first one is the most critical skills for us to teach our children. And it's not our lot alone, but our teachers also need to become conscious of this primary skills if they are going to partner with parents, so that they themselves as teachers can raise resilient children in their classroom space in that partnership. Okay? So the first one is the creative conditioning. That's what I call it. Creative conditioning. And what is this, you may ask? This is the prerequisite for raising conscious and spiritually connected children. Children who will honor dignity, children who will be nurtured and socialized into social and emotional learning, that they will respect others and themselves and grow in serious skills, that they may be successful in this world, not only in home, but in the workplace as well, and outside in the wider community, especially as we all live in a multicultural society right across the world. People are traveling more and are getting to places, people of different cultures, we said before. So, what is this all about? Creative conditioning is the stage and state of mind consciousness where parents come to recognize that they need to co-create through partnership with their children the transformation change is necessary to build a better world where human beings recognize the oneness of humanity in their connection to the Creator God. Interesting. We have to partner with that. And we have to be creative, and we have to condition, put forward the environment in which to create that awareness between our children and ourselves. Okay? After all, this is what is required of us to live sustainable lives and livelihood in a world where we share a common space. Of all the resources in the world, the natural resources of the environment, for example, our people resources, that we need each other to create this harmony, to have a shared space with a common goal, right? For sustainable livelihoods. So this is what we are asking for right now, that parents should begin that process of creating what I call creative conditioning. It is the development of a mindset, okay, that values the parent-child partnership in growing them consciously for success in fulfilling their purpose for which they came into this world. It's certainly not a purpose for the mother, or a mother's or a father's purpose, or auntie's purpose. It's the child's own purpose that the creator, God of this universe, imbued in him from conception to birth and through growing, right? So he has to be able, and parents have to come in to stimulate that learning. So creativity, as I describe it in this sense, is expressed from an awareness that each child is unique and that their responses to learning, stimulation, and discipline have to find creative and effective means and strategies to nurture them. Parents must find those means because every child is different. And you know, you grow up and you hear about the first child syndrome, the middle child syndrome, you know, the last child. And when you have 12, first, second, third, fourth to 12, each child is different. And we have to know who that child is in order to create the condition for him or her to learn those skills and master those skills. And parents, I dare say, if you don't know what you need to do to raise that child resiliently, you ought to get to know. As we said, there is no standard manual to teach us how. And even if there is, we have to know each child to be able to say, Johnny needs to be nurtured differently, even though the basic principles are there for all. Okay? You know, differently from Pamela, different from Huron, right? They are all different children. And to be effective and efficient in how you raise them, you have to know that. So you have to now begin the conditioning of the mind to understand where you need to go as a parent and how you need to bring them consciousness, raise them to develop that mindset, that understanding that they are here and now, and that they are going to occupy the world even in greater strategies than now. Now they're children or youth. All right. So we have to begin that process. So the conditioning role of parents is that they become conscious in understanding the true nature of their role so that they can ensure that their children will have a voice. Give them the opportunity to speak, right? Don't tell them shut up and leave them there. They have inquiring minds and they need to be creative and critical thinkers. And these are two of the other C's that we need to talk about. So, how are you going to develop this in these children unless you give them an opportunity to speak and express themselves? And it's not your expression of what you like and what you want. You're there to guide and help them to grow, to nurture their talents and skills that they have already, not to live the life you want them to live just because perhaps you didn't live that life yourself. That is selfish, right? Because you must respect them, if only because of human dignity. Okay, so we need to ensure that they have a voice, right, in the decision making process and acknowledge, right, and identify the strategies to strengthen their mindset for progress and success. They're not too young to learn these strategies, right? And you, as parents, must understand that it's a two-way process of our flow in terms of knowledge transfer. You give to them And they also give to you because they show you who they are. And you have to be conscious in understanding that this is who Johnny is. And Johnny is different from Millicent. So I have to be careful how I'm going to raise both of them, even though they have to be raised with the same mannerisms, moral principles, ethics, etc., for them to be successful in this world. Okay. So it's very important that we understand that. Okay. So I am asking parents now to make sure that they can collaborate with their children in a partnership where they now embrace them with trust, find out what is it that they would love to do, what skills they have, and don't just say, what skills you have, Johnny, what do you want to do? Observe them because they are telling you, and listen to their questions. Right? There's knowledge there in those questions that they are asking you. And it's not for you to say, oh, why are you asking me all these questions? Why are you bothering me with all these questions? That's reactive. You need to be tempered in a way where you acknowledge in gentleness and with gentleness these questions, because it's by these questions they're teaching you who they are. And you need to take that cue, encourage them to voice their opinion and speak to you and build that trust so you can begin to write down, if you don't know the answers that to the questions that they are asking, to go out and seek the answers and then come back and speak with them. Okay? They will soon realize that mommy needs to learn as well. Mommy does not have all the knowledge, or daddy, right? But the world is there for everybody to learn, and they will come back and engage their children in conscious parenting and conditioning their children to ask questions rather than go out in the world to ask that. And I'm taking a break right now till I get to my second C, which is creativity within the child himself.
Just go ahead.
All right. Thank you, my queen. Okay. And thank you, listeners. Okay. So the second C is creativity, the creative expression of the child himself. And this is about everything about life: science, technology, creative arts, right? And innovation, right? Skills to say, mommy, I want to dance. I want to learn to do drama. I want to do photography. I want to do whatever it is that they're creative about. They can even use their Lego toys and teach you that they want to be an architect, for example, designing buildings and so on. Have you taken the cue from that? The toys they play with, especially those toys that raise critical thinking and consciousness in our children, what lessons are they teaching you about who they are when they play with their toys? But do you ever sit down and observe them carefully? And if they have a particular pattern to how they play with these games and toys, are they telling you a story about themselves? This is part of your consciousness raising as well. Okay, so it's very important that you allow them that creativity to express their flair for the arts, designing, construction, architecture, you name it. They can tell you from early in their lives what they want to do or what they like to do. And as parents, you need to take that cue. And that leads me to the schools as well, where we tend to want to stream children based on what we think as teachers that they are good at or they are not good at. People develop at different times in their lives. And a child of 10, you may have two children at age 10, and one doesn't know yet what he wants to do, the other one knows. But the point is that you should allow them and see their creativity grow and their passion grow. And streaming, we have to be careful about that, because we know many children that were in lower streams in school go on to be doctors and lawyers and engineers and scientists. This is the reality, yet they were put in, when I was growing up, they call it the dunce class. Nobody wants to go in the dunce class, right? But separation of children right? We have to be careful how we separate, how we stream. We need to make sure we understand that child perfectly. And it's not only the teacher's words, but when it comes to the collaboration, we have to have teachers, parents, counselors, everybody. Because do you know sometimes the children are not doing well at school? And sometimes it's because of issues at home. They have their own struggles. They live in different environment at their homes. Many children are disadvantaged that way and they come to school tired, hungry, even, right? How can they learn well? Where are we as teachers to engage them and engage their parents? What is happening to little Johnny? I noticed that he used to be good and now he's not doing that well anymore. Is there an issue here? Open arms for parents to come to have that dialogue with you. What a wonderful world it would be for education, where parents can come in, not come to curse off teachers, but come to inquire about the progress of their child in order to understand how they can help the children at home and help the teachers in the progress so that they together, parents and school and teachers, are in partnership to raise successful children, okay? Or youth for that matter, okay? So their creativity is very important. And the other one, see, is the critical thinking skills. Let's encourage our children to think critically. And what does that mean? They already, some of them have inquiring minds, which you see. So continue the dialogue, the conversation. Okay, Johnny, why do you think so? Why do you ask this question? Because, mommy, I think. The fact that the child said, mommy, I think, that's a cue for you to jump on it and encourage that child. And whether it's in the classroom or in the house, you need, as teachers and parents, to take those cues. Because that child in the class that you think, oh, she's so precocious, always questioning, always disturbing. You notice? Disturbing the class. Always disturbing the class. Why? She has a point. She wants to say something. She is thinking. Allow her to ask her question. Give her the opportunity to voice. All right? Okay? So it's very important to encourage them because these expressions are indicators of how he or she, that inner genius of the child, is trying to burst through by asking these questions where he wants answers to. And sometimes it's, oh, Johnny, he's such a bright boy. Yes, but what are you doing to encourage this brilliance? And you don't have to have big knowledge about it, but you ask him and he's going to tell you what he thinks. And then you say, okay, Johnny, that's a brilliant idea. Let us see how we can develop it some more. I will try and find that teacher down the road. Maybe she can help. Maybe we should go and discuss it and find out. Okay. And the next one in the C's, by the way, we're looking at competencies, right? Technical competencies within our children, giving them opportunity to develop the skills and the gifts that you see in them already, right? So they are playing pots in your kitchen, playing pans, drums in your kitchen. And you say, oh, you're making too much noise. No, 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 no. You're saying, Johnny, wow, do you like to play pans? Yes. Really? Tell me, how do you see yourself? What do you want to do? I notice you don't have any drums. Would you like to get a set of drums? Yes, mommy, yes, yes, I want to. But don't stop there because he will need to learn the theory of the music, drumming that he wants to settle for. So get him a school where he can learn drumming, for example. Okay? Or he likes piano and he likes to sing and he's singing. He's not making noise. He's telling you who he is. All right. So you need to take cues from that. And he's going to build that competency he needs to be able to focus on what his skill is for him to have a career, to create wealth, for example, and build his own legacy. All right. So you weren't a drummer, but he wants to be a drummer. You are not a doctor. You were not trained that way, but he wants to go into medicine. Or she wants to do that. You see how she sticks up her dolls with pins and everything and picking the eyes and the nose and things like that. What is she doing? She's curious about this doll. right? Is she going into medicine? Does she want to learn about the body? So many things that we can take these cues and try to understand them to build their competencies, you know? And that goes back to streaming in the schools as well. That sometimes we stream children in classes that they don't have a passion for because we don't deeply know and delve deep, even at home and in the school, as to why he doesn't like math or why she doesn't like sciences, but she likes creative arts. She likes to write poetry. Is that a budding writer? But did you know that? Think about it, parents. Think about it, teachers. Okay? We have to change the paradigm. The other one is confidence, the other C. Confidence, to encourage the child to be confident, bold, and fearless, and speak their truth quietly and with respect. Mommy, I think that I prefer this over this. Why, my son? Because of XYZ. Oh, really? Tell me more. That's encouraging to speak and probably to speak his truth that he wants you to know. And you ought to listen seriously so that you don't disconnect from him and his gift and passion purpose as to why he came here into this life. So we need to encourage them to be bold, to build their confidence. Self confidence is very important because when you don't do that to help them to be self confident, right? What are you doing? They go into the schoolyard and they are bullied and run away and cry in the corner because they cannot stand up, not to fight, but speak boldly. I am not afraid of you. And if you continue to do that, I am going to the teacher, right? And, speak boldly so that the bullies around will take note of it, and when they are in cyberspace, they don't listen to things that they think these things are wrong and immoral. They switch off their phone or disconnect, delete accordingly, and move on. So they can manage themselves. You have to have passion, to manage yourself. Okay. The next one is compassion. And this is something that is very, very important, especially when we live in a multicultural society. And at home, the children need to know, what does it mean to have compassion, understanding, right, of circumstances, that not everybody is the same. Children all over the world are going through different home lives, and they are different in terms of challenges, vulnerabilities, concerns. Some parents are poor. They can't even find food to give their children to go to school. And yet they come in a multicultural classroom where others have and are privileged. But we don't help them to understand that there are differences in the world. But what is important is to understand it's me, it's not me, I, and my, but we, us, together, right? Where we share a common space and we have to live together. And so we have to understand the next child over there who appears to be different because he's not well put together in terms of the fancy Nike shoes and all those designer boots and clothes to come to school, right? He comes very simple because that's what his parents can afford. And yet, we don't teach our children to respect others. Not everybody come from the same beginning, but know this, that they are growing, and it's not how they start, it's how they end life. And we have to give them a foot up to make sure that they are successful, both parents and teachers and community people and workers as well. This is not a job where you do your work just because you need to get a salary at the end of the month. It is something that you should be committed to. And by the way, it is very important to understand this about the rights of the child. Okay? It's very important. The child needs to know, and the child needs to be valued in all areas of life and with all of the different villages that he finds himself in. Right? Okay. So connection is also the next C. So we look at compassion, right? And understand that everybody is different in terms of social and economic opportunities, right? And the privileged ones are better off than those that are still in lack. Okay? So we have to help everyone to understand this. And that bottom line is human dignity, respect for human dignity. The sixth C is connection, is where we encourage our children to build solid relationships with others in their school and their community. But it is important that you know who those relationship members are. And it's how you ask. Encourage your children to let you know as parents who their friends are. Who are they going out with when they take a social ride to the park, right? Or they stay in an after school program. Okay. So right? Get to know. All right. To teachers as well. Need to know, because if something happens, right? And a parent come to find out what has happened to her child, right? The teachers must also be aware. They can't know everything, but certainly if something happens, they must begin to question the condition, the context in which, these situations have occurred. Yes. And remember, as teachers, many of you do have children of your own. Think about that as well. So we need to encourage our children to know the connections. It's not, as I said, I, me, and my. It is we and us, building unity on a shared, in terms of a shared future. We occupy the same space here, right? Whether in schools, in our community, in our playgrounds, in our parks, we all, multicultural and diverse as we are coming together in these shared spaces, right? So we need to show respect and understanding, right? And that connection, to know that there's a oneness in a shared destiny. Okay. So that's very important. So the next one is character building. Character building. This is the serious focus. Who is this child? What is his character? Does he respect people? Does he respect his elders? Does he even respect himself and know who he is? What kind of character? Is he a loving, kind, giving child? Right? Does he know how important these things are? Is he being nurtured to understand that he needs to be self-confident, he needs to have self-love, he needs to love himself, he needs to understand that he needs to love others as well, right? So that focus, the need to build good character traits that respect all human beings despite their differences, obvious differences, and sometimes we can't even see them, but we see the difference in how they react to us, how they react to each other. Okay, Johnny, I don't want to talk to you. Look at you. The sneers, right? And the snickers behind his back is telling Johnny that he's not welcome, he's not wanted, he's not loved. But Johnny, what can he do? He has to learn that he has to be different and love others and share with others just because it's the right thing to do. And once he begins to do that, he's going to grow into an adult with those very same characteristic traits, right? To make a better life and to live sustainably in this world. So character building is very important, as I see. All right. And so that is very important, because this character building, for good character, it's coming from foundation of nurturing and socialization that acknowledge this important shared humanity and human dignity. Okay. It's necessary for all children to be taught as well their legal rights and responsibility. And you will remember, if not teachers will, some policymakers know that too, that the United Nations prepared and promoted a document called The Rights of the Child. How many parents are aware of this? How many teachers are? And it's a document that's freely available and should be within every school, for example, and every home. And yet we celebrate the Day of the Child. But does he know his right? And sometimes we know the right of the child, but we hide it. We don't want him to know because we are fearful. But if he's nurtured that way, to understand with rights come responsibilities too. And they're never too early to learn this so that we do not move forward into a future with disconnectivities, right? We need to teach them that, right? Our children, some of our children are living in homes where mothers and fathers are fighting like cats and dogs and are unaware of the impact on their children. Do they have rights to ask question, mommy, daddy, why? It's affecting me. It's very important. When they know their rights, they can answer abusive situation, whether it's sexual, verbal, emotional, or otherwise. They have rights. What are we focusing on when we are raising our children? And they don't even know so that they can protect themselves out there in the world. They can stand up and say, I know my right. I have a right for you not to abuse me, right? And if you continue, this is what I'm going to do. Teach them. Be deliberate or intentional so that they know. Okay? And then that leads right into coping skills. How do we help them to cope with vulnerabilities, sadness, loss, grief? And by the way, it's not only when we talk about grief and loss, think of a child losing a pet. Have you ever thought about that? The impact on that child, that favored pet, that they lose that pet, whether in an accident or dying naturally. Do you know they mourn that loss too? What do you do to help them to overcome that, to build coping skills, to manage even with that loss? But we never, many of us as parents don't even think about it. The grandmother died, but we never ask them how they feel. How is it impacting them? The father died and they cry, 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 and we cry with them. But have we the conversation to help them to cope? Think about it. And when that child doesn't turn up at school, or when it does turn up and they say, Mom, Mary's father died last week. And you say, Oh my, I'm sorry. Is it okay with you, dear? No, go beyond that to find out because maybe Mary is feeling deep loss that needs to be healed. And if it's not happening at home, you can call the parents. We noticed this about Mary. What is happening? How can we help? What are you doing to help Mary overcome? Okay. These are the kind of coping skills I'm talking about. Grief, suffering, vulnerability, pain, stress, both in home, out of home, in schools as well. How do we help them? And yet, we say we love our children, and I have no doubt. But we need to think differently. Look at COVID. Lots of children are under stress right now and are very vulnerable. They're grieving, right? They don't know how to cope. They run to mommy, but mommy is working hard at home, doing the office work. I can't listen to you now. Mommy, I have a problem with this assignment. Can you help me? No, I can't help you. Go and do it. Oh, think about it. We, as parents, and I dare say teachers, may not be aware of what is happening, but we must be able to say, let me find out. It's not a perfect world. And so, what is affecting you as adults, don't think it's not affecting the children and the young ones or the youth. Yes, they are being affected, but they don't have a voice because many of them have not built a trust in home to be able to go to parents and say, this is how I feel. They should be able to do it with a guidance counselor at school and their teachers as well, right? And together in partnership, right? They will need to come together to help that child. Seriously. All right. You need, as parents, to ask yourself in this time, what is my child experiencing? How does he feel? What can I do? The world, for example, is facing this terrible pandemic where there seem to be no answers. One time, The statistics going down, next time it's up, it's a roller coaster. And yet our children want to go outside and play. They want to do so many things because they feel locked up. How do they cope in situations like that? Who is helping them to cope? Seriously, let's begin to think, because the aftermath of COVID will still be with us. How are we going to respond to our children? I leave you with that central question after this last one. Control, child control, controlling the child to the extent that the child cannot even begin to control himself or understand strategies for self regulation and self control of himself. We need to teach him that. And yes, he should have a voice, but at the same time as having a voice, he should be taught how to use that voice positively so that he gives respect to his elders and speak his truth because he's encouraged to do so. And therefore, he will not run in a temper tantrum, even though he knows he's at the age where he doesn't have to do that.
Mm.
All right? The little ones, yes, but when you see them begin to do that, jumping and rolling over and beating up the chair and everything, you have to step in as parents to show them differently.
Mm.
A hug and a kiss and say, honey, no, let's do it differently. Speak with mommy or speak with daddy, right? If it's a daddy, and the daddy must participate as well, together, if he's part of the home circle. Or if the mother is not part of the home circle, the auntie is being raised by an aunt, being raised by an uncle, whoever is the parent for that child, not necessarily by blood, right? But it could be adopted parent, and this sort of thing, right? So I think on that note, I will say that I hope you have learned the 10 C's, right, that I put together. And if that's required by you, right, this can be made available to you. I gave you my docmorris@gmail.com. I also have a website called drmarlynmorris.com, Inspiring Life Solutions, where many of these are on those websites, where I teach strategies to parents, teachers, you know, community groups, seniors, you name it. Okay. So please don't hesitate to touch base with me. I would love to hear from you. All right. And remember to share this with your friends and neighbors and teachers and community leaders like your pastors. It's all of us in this thing together, unity, one for all and all for one, because we share a common space called the universe, the earth, and our community, and Canada, our country. Okay. Thank you
Awesome.
so much for listening. I do appreciate this and that you take the time to listen. Thank you. See you next week. And thank you, my queen, for this opportunity.
You are very welcome, Dr. Morris. Thank you so much, and see you later.
Thank you.
Awesome. So, guys, thank you guys so much for this time on the Queen Amina Show with Dr. Marlyn Morris. So, please, just a couple of things coming up. The Vigo Awards International will be October 4th, 2020, virtually. So make sure you're continuing to register your COVID-19 heroes that have gone over and above the call of duties in their different sphere in helping to keep us going. And also, we have the Unveiled Women Conference coming up, where I'm moderating August 29th. Make sure you are registered to be able to attend the conference. It's going to be super packed with a lot of vibrant, young, very, very young women are going to be speaking at that event. Other than that, I think I would see you guys within the week. Schools are opening up and a lot of things are happening. So the Vigo Awards, the Queen Amina Show is going to be, taking some days off, and we are going to be coming back maybe once or twice a day now. So that gives me the chance to focus more on family and a lot of other events that I do over the years. So while this lasted through the COVID lockdown season. I hope you've been enjoying the Queen Amina show. Please continue to support us by sharing the broadcast and subscribing to our YouTube channel and following us on Facebook and Instagram. Until next time, keep smiling, keep loving, keep watching the Queen Amina show.